The Palestinian militant group Hamas has released the first group of hostages it's been holding since its terrorist attacks on Israel on October 7th. The International Red Cross confirmed Hamas released 24 people, including 13 Israeli women and children. In return, Israel has released 39 Palestinians it was holding in jails.
On the road to freedom. The first group of Israeli hostages released by Hamas militants entered Egypt via the Rafah border crossing from Gaza. After weeks of anguish, they are now in safe hands. Their first stop, a medical facility in Rafah. The convoy then crossed into Israel to undergo further medical checks and finally reunite with loved ones. Among those freed are mothers and their children, as well as elderly women. Israel's leader says he's committed to bringing home all abductees.
We have now completed the return of the first of our hostages. Children, their mothers and other women. Each and every one of them is a whole world. But I stress to you, the families, and to you, citizens of Israel, we are committed to the return of all of our hostages. This is one of the goals of the war, and we are committed to achieving all of the goals of the war.
In the occupied West Bank, a group of 39 Palestinian inmates were freed as part of the temporary truce. Those released include only women and minors. In Ramallah, large crowds gathered to welcome them home. More Palestinian prisoners and Israeli hostages are set to be released in the coming days.
DW correspondent Tania Krämer is in Jerusalem and joins us now. Hello, Tania. It's been an emotional 24 hours, hasn't it? How is the atmosphere inside Israel?
Well, I think it has been a day on Friday of mixed feelings, because on the one hand there was a lot of joy and relief, obviously, about that everything went well, that those 13 Israeli hostages were released alongside 11 hostages that were Thai nationals and Philippine citizens that were also captured on October 7. They were also brought home. So, but again, now the focus is already on today, because there's hope that the same scenario will play out again. Hamas has submitted a list, according to Israeli media here, of another 13 names of hostages that will be released today, probably in the same kind of scenario. So all eyes are on that already. At the same time, of course, there are those families who might not have their relatives on that list. We know that in the next coming days, for 4 days, there will be all in all 50 hostages that will be released under this agreement. But there are many more, of course, of the over 230 hostages that are being held by Hamas and other militant factions in Gaza that might stay behind. So there's a lot of concern what will happen with them, especially that Israel has said, the war will continue after this truce.
Now, in exchange, 39 Palestinians have been released from a prison in the West Bank. What can you tell us about them?
Yes, late last night, also those 39 Palestinians that were jailed in Israeli prisons were released. We know it was there were 24 women and 15 teenagers, so under the age of 18. Also, their families had prepared, that they are coming home. There was also a lot of, celebration there. We also understand there were police raids, at least in East Jerusalem, with some of the families. There were some restrictions placed on the detainees when they come home, that there shouldn't be big celebrations. But again, there as well, the same scenario today. We're expecting more prisoners being released under the agreement. Up to 150, as far as we understand, should be released. So we are waiting to see whether this will happen today as well.
Overall, Tania, how would you describe the mood on the ground? It's a bit bittersweet, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, on the one hand, of course, we are waiting to see whether this very fragile and shaky truce, so far it's holding, will be holding now, whether, all these, the hostages as planned will be released today and tomorrow. Every day we're hearing a dozen hostages should be released in exchange for more Palestinian prisoners. But of course you have to look also into Gaza, what is happening there. We understand more humanitarian aid is going into Gaza right now, more trucks of humanitarian aid entered on Friday through the Egyptian crossing, the Rafah crossing. But again, for people there, residents in Gaza, it's also very, uncertain moment, because they know for now the truce was set for 4 days. It might be extended if more hostages are released, but then, the war might resume. So it's a very uncertain and situation for people there as well.
Right. DW correspondent Tania Krämer in Jerusalem. Many thanks. Now, U.S. President Joe Biden has welcomed the release of the first group of hostages. Biden said he hoped more would be released in the coming days. He also said he hoped the current 4-day ceasefire would be extended.
We also look to the future. As we look to the future, we have to end this cycle of violence in the Middle East. We need to renew our resolve to pursue this two-state solution, where Israelis and Palestinians can one day live side by side in a two-state solution, with equal measure of freedom and dignity. 2 states for 2 peoples. And it's more important now than ever. Hamas unleashed this terrorist attack because they fear nothing more than Israelis and Palestinians living side by side in peace.
Mike Martin is a former British Army officer and senior fellow in the Department of War Studies at King's College, London. Hello, Mike. Thanks for joining us. The hostage release and prisoner swap seems to have gone smoothly on day one. The truce seems to be holding. Has it been a successful deal so far?
I think it has been a very successful deal. I think the truth is with these sorts of operations is that each time it iterates, so the Hamas release people and then the Israelis release people, it builds up a very low level of operational trust that these sorts of deals can happen and can work. And so that obviously will build on some of the successes that we've seen. But at the same time, it's very easy to have an accident or perhaps a spoiler to break these deals apart. And so everything needs to be watched very carefully, planned very carefully, lots of communication between the sides. So it's very early, but so far so good.
I mean, a bit on what you just said, will any of the sides want to jeopardize the situation right now?
No, I don't think they will, but the sides are not homogenous. Well, the Israeli side is much more homogenous than Hamas, but within Hamas, it may prove to be difficult to control absolutely everybody within Hamas. And then there are other actors in the Gaza Strip, like the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, which is another militant movement, and they haven't been included in this deal, so they may want to scupper that deal. And of course, we've got a situation where thousands of people have been killed, and so many of their relatives will be looking to perhaps carry out something that is not part of this deal. So, this is why these sorts of things are so difficult, not because of the people who made the deal, but because of all the other people who live and are involved in the area.
Right. Now, as the ceasefire continues, what do you think the Israeli forces in Gaza will be doing right now, and what will Hamas be doing?
So both sides will use this operational pause as a way of restocking, so getting their logistics working, moving ammunition, water, food around in case hostilities resume. And also both sides, particularly the Israelis, will be using this chance, whilst their opponents are restocking, to conduct intelligence. So they will be trying to look at where supply routes are, where dispositions of enemy forces are and what capabilities they have. So whilst there's no fighting going on, it's a great chance to spy on each other effectively.
Is there any chance you think, I mean, the US President Biden hopes that the truce will go beyond 4 days. Is there any chance of that happening, you think?
My reading of that is, in addition to what I just said about how these types of deals tend to build lower levels of trust that then can perhaps be built on. But I think there's another thing. I think that Israel may well be realizing that it actually cannot achieve what it set out to achieve, conducting a massive ground operation like it has been conducting. And so this truce actually offers a chance to move into a ceasefire while saving face to come back from that original aim of eliminating Hamas through a massive ground operation, which is very difficult. Of course, I think what we need to see, excuse me, is a road to bringing all of the hostages out. And if that happens, day by day, more hostages come out. If that happens, then I think we're in a position where perhaps a longer-term ceasefire could take hold.
Okay. Mike Martin in London, thank you.
Thank you.
As we heard earlier, 39 Palestinians have been released. Most of those are women with some teenage boys. One of the women released is Mara Bakir. She spent 8 years in jail for a knife attack on an Israeli border policeman when she was 16 years old. She's now been returned to East Jerusalem.
Mara Bakir's mother holds her tight, unable to fight the tears. It's been 8 years since her daughter was jailed in an Israeli prison. Mara is now home, but the feeling is bittersweet.
I'm happy to be out, but at the same time, it is very upsetting that the price paid for our release is the blood of the people of Gaza.
Mara was only 16 when she was jailed on knife and assault charges. Her mother has been waiting ever since for this day.
She was shot 14 times. She needed me. It was very painful not having her here.
Similar joy to that of the Bakir family was felt in the occupied West Bank, as dozens of released prisoners were reunited with their families. Palestinian prisoners were paraded in front of euphoric supporters.
We're beyond words. God willing, all the prisoners will be released.
Before their release, clouds of white smoke filled the air as Israeli authorities fired tear gas to disperse the crowds. According to the Palestinian Red Crescent, several people were wounded. A total of 150 Palestinian prisoners are expected to be freed in line with the deal. Maybe more if the truce is extended.
Journalist Hazem Balousha was in Gaza until recently. He joins us now from the Jordanian capital, Amman. Hello, Hazem. Tell us more about the reaction in Gaza to the release of the Palestinian prisoners.
In Gaza, it's a different feeling, different reaction. People are happy for those who were released in the West Bank, but they are not happy for what they have had experienced during the past times. When the fighting was going on before the pause, and they are not happy for what they had or have seen during the first day of the pause. More devastating areas. Many of them, they made sure that their houses are grounded, and some people are busy of taking out some bodies. They're still under the rubble. In the same time, some of the people, they were supporting this deal and the release of the exchange of prisoners. But in the same time, some of them, they were angry and think this is not worth it.
There are reports that 3 people in the West Bank were shot and wounded in clashes with Israeli security forces. Does the truce not apply to the West Bank?
Yes, even in Gaza, there were some reports that the two were killed while they were trying to go from south to the north. The agreement is clear: is for Gaza. The ceasefire and the pause will be implemented only in Gaza Strip and to halt the hostilities in Gaza Strip. Nobody or no one mentioned the West Bank or other places. Even in Lebanon, it wasn't mentioned there that Lebanon going to be included, or other places like Yemen or whatever who was or whoever was involved in this fighting. So we are talking about Gaza and Gaza Strip, this agreement between Hamas and Israel to halt the hostilities and to release or exchange of prisoners between Gaza and Israel.
So, as you say, the ceasefire is supposed to still be in effect. It's supposed to be in effect for 4 days. What can we expect from today onwards?
Well, it's in two levels. If we are talking about like the ordinary people, they are looking for more peaceful days, more quiet days, so they can retreat. They can have more relief. They get more supplies, more aid come into Gaza, and they need more trucks to come. In the same time, the people, all the people that I talk to and I seen that they are looking for extension of these days, and they, in fact, most of the people, they want a full ceasefire that to stop all the war and to go back to their homes.
Right. Journalist Hazem Balousha in Amman. Thank you.
Thank you.